so much for joining us here at Mwanzo TV. My name is Victor Wanaso, and today we're going to discuss about the Hustler Fund that was launched last week by President Uhuru Kenyatta, President William Ruto, and was found to be a game changer pertaining to the small-scale business owners here in Kenya. We're going to discuss about the viability, the source of the fund that is approximated to be 50 billion shillings. And to help us discuss this is none other than Kilian Amolo, a lecturer at KCA University and also an economic analyst from here in Kenya. Thank you so much, Kilian, for joining us.
Welcome, Victor.
So today we are just going straight to the Hustlers Fund that was launched yesterday, last week, yes, by President William Ruto.
Yes.
First, what is your sentiments about the Hustler Fund?
Yes, what I would want to say is that I want to begin with the positives. The first one is that this is a statement that the president is fulfilling his campaign promises to the people of Kenya. I remember this is one of the issues that people were very skeptical about, and whether it will come to see the light of day or not. But we've seen it being launched successfully, which is a very big positive, and sending a very strong signal on his campaign pledges that he's going to fulfill most of the things that he promised the people of Kenya that would deliver about. Yeah, that is the first thing that I would want to mention about this fund. The second thing I would want to mention about this fund is that when taken seriously, this fund is likely to make many people to be successful in the sense that when you receive it and you positively, receive it with a will to use it and repay, because the sustainability of the fund depends on people repaying, because a high default rate will make the fund to fail, because future availability of the fund depends on the will of people to repay right now. So if you can take this amount of money, remember it is due in 2 weeks' time. And in finance, we say that if you are sourcing from a short-term source, you also need to invest in the short term. Don't think long-term with this money, because if you think long-term, where will you get the money to repay the loan plus the interest? So I want just to tell the Kenyans who are benefiting from this fund that, number one, think short-term and put this thing in a particular venture that will give you that money back within 2 weeks and repay to the government.
During the campaigns, the Kenya Kwanza administration said that the fund will be a grant. So a lot of Kenyans are a bit worried. How did it mutate to be a loan?
To be sincere, Victor, I still see the fund still operating as a grant, in the sense that so most people who are benefiting from this fund, they are getting 500 shillings. And we all know that 500 shillings is so insignificant to venture in a business, unless you are that mama mboga who is in the business of selling vegetables, but you only need like 500 or 300 shillings to buy your mboga to go and sell that day. In that case, this fund will be significantly useful to you. But for a majority of Kenyans, getting a business that you can do with 500 shillings in 2 weeks and come and repay that money will be very difficult. That is number one. Number two, most people who are receiving this money, they are already overburdened with Fuliza, they are already overburdened with loans from other apps. So this means that the amount of money that they are receiving will basically for consumption. It will not go for business purposes, but for personal use. And suppose I am taking money to invest in a loan, in a project somewhere, and I have eaten this money. Remember, there is no project to generate returns to repay this money. So that means that the default rate is going to be very high. And with a very high default rate, I don't see the government behaving like the other apps that have been there in the past, following people and chasing them. Where are you? We need our 500 shillings. Yeah, so that is why I'm seeing a polite way in which the government is just bringing people on board. Let these people default. And after that, maybe going forward, the government will remain with the groups and other MSMEs and corporates that cannot default so that they can continue by growing their limits. But if these individuals can remain committed to repaying the loan, then this thing is going to work.
So in your view, when it comes to individuals, it's going to be a tall order to...
It is going to be a tall order. And I'm actually justifying this by quoting one of the 5 C's of credit. There is something called the 5 C's of credit. One of them is character. And the character gauges the likelihood of a borrower to repay a loan. Most people take loans with an intention of repaying. If the will to pay is there, it means that you are more likely going to repay the loan. But in this case, we have seen the political class even telling people to take the loan and not repay. That means such statements is already denting their character and making them not to repay this loan deliberately.
Politics aside, let's talk about you being an economic expert. Do you think or do you know of any mechanism that the government would have employed to make sure that even the individuals repay back the loan?
They would have made these individuals to come as groups. Yeah, that is number one. Because when you are in a group setting, you become accountable to one another. Because you want the group to move forward so as to have the goals of the group being achieved at the time that they were destined to be achieved. So if this loan was purely granted on a group basis, the default rate, because most funds that we have seen, not just in Kenya and even other parts of the world, they fail because of default risk. People taking and not repaying. But if this thing was done in a group setting, the probability that it would default would almost be non-existent. Yeah, so that is one thing that I would have expected the government to do. The second thing that I would have expected the government to do before hurriedly releasing this fund into the public domain is having something like a civic education or training the people who are going to benefit from this fund that yes, you are getting this fund, this is how you are supposed to use it. Because most people were excited to use it, to get it. Actually, we were getting close friends sending SMS messages to one another to confirm that they have received the money. And even to say that we have used it for ABCD. I even saw a joke in the social media of someone who received 500 from the government and betted with it on a game against Argentina and another team. People using it for betting what? Purposes. Yeah, so we are saying that this money was given without preparing the public on how to use the same. So this is something that the government maybe could have done much better about.
And then the launch coming at the time when Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua has been saying that they inherited a government that is a dead broke. And we are talking about 50 billion shillings. Where is the source of these funds?
Yeah, the source of this fund is still a mystery, because as far as I know, that all the government programs or activities are purely supposed to be budgeted for, subject to approval by the National Assembly. And the fact that we are seeing the minister in charge of the cooperatives being in charge of this fund means that it's a fully backed government activity. So that means that these funds have come from the government. But the relevant kitty where the government is getting these funds is what still remains a mystery, because we have not been told that this money is coming from the national treasury as supposed to be there. That is how traditionally it's supposed to be. So the assumption is that it is coming from there. And that is the basis on which some people are saying that the fund is illegal because it has not been approved by what? By Parliament. Yeah. But I also still believe that this money is coming from the national treasury.
2.9 billion shillings has already been dispersed as we speak.
Correct.
What does that say about Kenyans?
It means that Kenyans were eagerly waiting for this money. And I'm sure that even those people who have not benefited, maybe it is because of one technical problem and another, with their phones taking too long to respond. Otherwise, almost everyone would have benefited from the first 3 days of its launch. It means that Kenyans have taken this thing very positively, number one. And it also means that there are people who are out there to confirm whether this thing is working, right? And remember, we have come from just an election. It also means that there are people who want to take it Yeah, you know, this is also another thing that is likely to contribute to the default rates in this fund. There are people who feel like we voted for this government. And so the Hustlers Fund is a reward for doing what? For voting in for the current president, that is called the Honorable William Ruto. So if you are taken into the mindset that you had voted in this government and this is your reward, we get that mindset likely to dent the will to repay the loan. Yeah.
As soon as the president launched the funds, I was among the first people to try and register for the Hustler Fund.
Yes.
But as we speak, I haven't received any response after that.
Yes.
And I was doing that not because I wanted to start a business. I just wanted to confirm if at all it's true.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to believe we have a lot of Kenyans who did that.
Yes.
Do you think the funds will reach the targeted individuals?
Unfortunately, I would say no, because the individual who is intended with this fund is the hustler on the ground. But unfortunately, we have almost everyone applying for this fund across the board. Actually, to be sincere, we interact with people at different levels. So we have so many people out of curiosity applying for the fund. And that means that the fund at some point will end up not reaching the person on the what? On the ground. Yeah, but if this fund can reach the person on the ground, I'm seeing a lot of positives that can come out of it. Because number one, the person on the ground was neglected for a long time from the mainstream financial institutions because they don't qualify for any loans. And because of a high risk of lending to this category of people. Now, because of that, as these people go for the Hustlers Fund, it means that even the people who were previously going and being turned down, or those going and being given very little amount, they will come back to the Hustlers Fund. And for them coming back to the Hustlers Fund, it means that this fund is going to offer some little competition to the financial institution that was having the low end of the market. And as this happens, these institutions will have to repackage their products. And that means that most Kenyans will now benefit from loans being more accessible as a result of because it's going to offer competition. Not just to this institution, even to Fuliza, even to Mshwari, it's going to offer competition to these products.
Opposition has been appealing to Kenyans, as you said, to take the loan and not
repay
back.
Yes.
And the same opposition has been saying that the funds are not legal. Do you see a scenario where we're going to see a case in court about that? About
the fund? Yeah, that is the only logical thing that I would expect the opposition to do. To go to court so that the court can declare whether this fund is illegal or legal. That is number one. And number two, in terms of paying, taking and not paying, I would want to say that yes, you can come as a group and say that we are not going to pay. But remember, the consequences will be on you as an individual if you don't pay the loan. Yeah, the consequence will be with you, on you as an individual. By the way, if this fund was to be administered well, it is going to bring in so many openings that will happen positively for this economy. Because if, for example, many people, many private individuals and even SMEs benefit from this fund, the level of investments in the economy are going to increase. As investments increase, it means that more jobs are going to be created. As more jobs are going to be created, it means that many people will have the ability to fend for themselves. And as that happens, it means that people will consume goods, more goods, the demand will increase, and the government will be benefiting from more tax revenues. That is if the fund is administered very well. Yeah.
Then a lot of people are wondering, why would I borrow money from the government? And then the same government save a section of that loan for my future use.
What ordinarily happens is that, suppose I give you 1,000 shillings now, Victor. Chances are that you will consume the whole of it. You will not save even a single cent, right? And most people that we have in Kenya, the majority of people are below 35 years of age. And this is the age where most people, there is something called the life cycle model of consumption, which states that at a particular young age, most people consume almost everything that they get. They don't think about tomorrow. So that means people have always been told about the need to save, but they have not seen it themselves. And the government is simply coming forward and making it easier for people to do what? To save. Actually, if you interact with the people who have benefited from this fund, you realize that even after the amount of saving has been deducted and you are given the net amount from the fund, it is still much cheaper than what the other loan apps are offering. Because the other loan apps are giving you the same amount, but there are so many charges. You can apply for, let's say, 1,000, but you end up getting 650. The other 350 shillings has been taken as a charge. There is a processing fee, there is an interest, so it's a lot of money. But here, the amount that is being taken as a saving is not even reaching them. It's not even the same as the amount of M-Pesa charges, for example. So it's something that you will not even feel it. Yeah.
And then talking about the decision that the government said whoever default will be arrested. First, do you think the government can dare arrest a Kenyan for failing to repay the hustler fund? And if it does, what will be the political implication of the same government?
Yes, I honestly don't see the government arresting someone for giving the same person 500 shillings. Because if the person has not failed to repay the 500 shillings, it could mean that the will to pay is there, but the ability to pay is not there. Because this person was not prepared to use this money. This money came when this person was so needy and even hungry, has not even had a meal for 3 days. And the amount has gone towards consumption instead of going for business purposes. So I don't think the same government that was elected by this person will come in and arrest this person for not repaying the 500 shillings.
I was just comparing the two manifestos for Azimio and also for Kenya Kwanza.
Yes.
And specifically about the Hustler Fund, and Azimio had promised to give a stipend of
6,000. Yes, yes.
For every individual,
yes.
every month.
Yes.
Now that there is an assumption that this money Kenyans are not going to pay, to the common Kenyan, known as the hustler,
yes,
which do you think would be of great
value?
Number
one, let's look at the target audience for the two funds. The target audience is not the same. The Hustlers Fund was meant to be targeting the person on the ground who is so needy and ready to start all over, right? And the other one for the Azimio was targeting only the vulnerable, not everyone. I think that is something that also needs to be taken into consideration. That one was targeting the elderly and the other vulnerable members of the society. But if you look at the amount, it was very significant, because 6,000 is very significant. You can start something with it. And remember, it was going to come regularly, if I remember. It was going to be coming per month, even though the Hustlers Fund is coming once, as opposed to being coming regularly. So I would say that the other one for Azimio was much better, but targeting a different audience altogether, not targeting everybody like the Hustlers Fund is made open for every person. Yeah, that is where the difference is. Yeah.
Then the sustainability, we're told the government is very serious about that fund. How would you advise the government to which measures to put in place so that this Hustler Fund can be sustainable going forward? Because what happens when the 50 million exhausts?
I see the government should be serious and in the sense that they should urge people to form groups. Yeah, actually form groups. Like I mentioned earlier, if you're in a group setting, it is not easy to disappear. Because if a member of a group has defaulted, it means the group will not benefit again. And so the other members of the group can either cover for this member or be on the case of this member to ensure that the member repays the loan. That is the first thing that I would expect them to do. The second thing that I would expect the government to do is even to involve the local administration where the person benefiting is coming from. In as far as I remember when we were applying for help, when we were joining the university, we would go to the local chief and the local sub chief for them to authenticate that you come from that place and that you are needy. And then from that, you go to the next level. So if it goes like that, if you know that these people know even where you come from, they even know your chief and the local village elders, I don't think the default rates will significantly reduce in this case. Yeah.
The funds were targeted to those people who are very needy in the society,
yes,
and also those who had been listed under CRB.
Correct.
And the government is dealing with, is working with these Safaricom, Airtel, and also
correct.
Orange.
Telecom, yes.
Do you think this fund is going to affect negatively the operations of these mobile service providers? Some of them are giving those.
Correct. Yeah. Correct. Maybe what they can do now, like I was mentioning about the financial providers repackaging their products, we are likely going to see going forward even Mkewe being made cheaper. Like Mkewe right now goes at around 9%, while the Hustlers Fund goes at 8%. That means the Hustlers Fund is much cheaper. So going forward, in business, if the competitive landscape changes, you also have to repackage your products. You have to re-strategize so as to remain relevant, to continue tapping into the market that you were serving previously. So I foresee a situation in which Safaricom, Airtel, and Telecom will have to reduce their lending rates. They will have to reduce their lending rates so as to retain that target market. Yeah.
And then most of the people who have benefited from the funds, you get who are eligible, maybe
yes,
500 shillings.
Correct.
How do you advise someone so that he can get more money?
More money. Yeah. Yes. If you want to get more money from this fund, ensure that you repay. And ensure that you repay even before the 14 days have lapsed. I think we can take this from our experiences in the other apps and even the Mkewe. If you repay before the due date, you will always get a message that your limit has been increased because of being a good customer or because of having a good credit standing. So that is where the secret is. Take the money and repay earlier. And at the moment you repay earlier, you will be eligible for a higher limit. If you are seriously outside there and you want to grow, you want to expand your business, you want to ensure that you get a bigger limit, the secret is only to repay.
Maybe lastly,
yes,
from where you sit,
yes,
how or do you think what are some of the measures that the government is using to maybe to disqualify someone from those funds? Because anyone who has been listed by CRB, ordinarily from other mobile money providers, he or she will be
disqualified. Correct.
So what are some of the qualifications for someone to be eligible for these funds?
For this fund, like the president mentioned when the fund was being launched, that they are giving Kenyans a second chance. And please ensure that you change your behavior because we are giving you a second chance. The meaning of that statement is that this fund is available for everyone, irrespective of your CRB status. Initially, it is available for everyone. But now the problem comes because, there are certain behaviors that can never change. Even with the other apps, we had people who are borrowing from here, borrowing from there, then they switch off that line and throw it away. So if that kind of person comes with that kind of mentality in the Hustlers Fund, they will only benefit once, right? So I want just to tell Kenyans that this fund is available for everyone, irrespective of your CRB status. Just come and apply and ensure that you repay, because you are being given a second chance. That is the meaning of that statement. Being given a second chance means they are not looking at your CRB status. Yeah.
What about the financial capability of someone? Is it also being put into consideration before you become eligible?
Yeah, there is a little, I would say there is a little, they don't look at your financial capability as such, but okay, it's the other word of putting it, they look at your credit history or your credit rating, which defines your risk level. So that risk level is what determines the amount of limit that people are given. Because most people I've talked to is between 500 to 900 shillings. That depends on how you have interacted with the Safaricom's and with the other apps. That is what defines the amount of money that you get. Yeah.
Supposing I've been using a lot of money in my Safaricom line on M-Pesa, and I apply for those funds, will I be given?
Yeah, you will still be given. Yeah, because like I said, this fund is available for everyone. But initially, I think we saw during the launch that even the very rich people in this country were qualifying for a limit of around 1,600 or a limit of 2,200, right? How about an ordinary person? That is why most people are still not exceeding the 1,000 limit. Because even the government, they are very wise. They know that most people are going to take this fund and go away. So let them take and go away, but let them take a small what? A small amount. You get that? So that the serious ones who are remaining can grow their what? Can grow their limit progressively.
Lastly, what is your advice to that hustler who is eligible for the funds?
That hustler who is eligible for the fund, go ahead and take this fund. But before you take it, sit down and think about something serious you want to do with it. Because as human beings, the real you is the way you behave when you have money. You can be thinking of doing this, doing that, but when money comes, it changes everything. So please don't take this fund before you sit down with a pen and paper and say that I want to do this. Plan on how to invest this money, where you want to invest it. Let that investment be something that you can bring that money back in 2 weeks so that you repay the amount and then be eligible for a higher limit. Don't just apply because other people are applying, because that will be one of the causes of failure. Sit down and plan on how to use this money before you take it.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming.
Welcome.
For helping us digest this very important topic about the hustler fund.
Thank you and welcome. Okay.
Na huyo amekuwa ni Kilion Molo ambaye ni mtaalamu wa masuala ya kiuchumi kutoka hapa Nairobi, Kenya, akitufafanulia kuhusiana na hazina hii ya mahasla ambayo iliweza kuzinduliwa na Rais William Ruto wiki iliyopita. Tunaweza kufahamu kwamba yoyote anaweza kupata fedha hizi hata iwapo ako na deni katika makampuni mengine ya kutoa fedha. Na kufikia hapo ndipo tunahitimisha mjadala huu. Hadi wakati mwingine, mimi naitwa Victor Wanaswa na kutakia siku njema.
Thank you. Failed to tell.